How's it going, everybody? This is definitely a different one. If you've looked at the title at all, you'll notice that it's episode 21.5. Well, here's the reality of the situation. I had a bit of a snafu. I've been trying to upgrade my audio setup lately. Not so much in like the audio quality. I feel like I've got that pretty solidly nailed. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I've got it pretty decently set up. The thing is, I want to be able to record multiple strings of audio simultaneously. It would allow me to be able to do potentially more collaborative like things, because you have to kind of separate your quality of audio if you're going to make it work, and unfortunately doing so is more challenging than I thought. And whilst I feel like I've got a kind of set up, the problem is became very inconsistent, and so I've kind of reverted back to my old setup in order to continue making content. And I'll see if I can get some help or something, maybe figure out talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, or at least have done it before on a private setup. But regardless of that, the issue is that apparently my setup for Trails in the Sky fell through the cracks a bit. Well, it should have been set up in a way that captured the audio, because this issue that caused my loss with this episode was not an issue when I recorded Yakuza, which is of a very similar setup, because it, like Trails, is a game that I record capturing the screen so I can kind of get that high fidelity, higher graphics level. Not that it matters for Trails, but the setup is similar. So I was shocked to find that when I was starting to edit, that I had none of the game audio. Normally that wouldn't be too big of a problem, but unfortunately it does kind of detract from the game. And I don't want to go back and re-record it, because that was like a 2.5 hour recording, like nonstop. I don't think it's right to recreate like those reaction moments, and I don't know, like it just doesn't seem right to me to just make the video having completely nothing in the background, nor does it seem right for me to try and artificially put audio in the background, because then you're not getting any of the cues that come with like conversations and linking up with characters. And so I'm going to do a bit of a hybrid, because thankfully this all happened on an episode that was all about side quests. So while it's kind of sad that we're losing it, at least it's not a core episode. If it had been core stuff, I might have just had to re-record, or even like delay the video to re-record, just because I don't have the time to really manage it for this week. So this is my solution for this week. I apologize, but I think it'll be fair enough, and it lets me kind of cut into the parts that I think are the most memorable, at least when it comes to what I said in reaction. And then like overall, I'm just going to go over the story beats. I don't think it's the best way to do this kind of content, but considering the circumstances, I think it's the best kind of hybrid that we can do for now. Keep in mind, this is very much like a one-time thing. I really don't want this to ever happen again, so I'm going to do my very best to kind of keep things summarized. All right, so we started things off back in town. We had a lot of side quests to go down. We have pretty much, a lot of it was kind of vague. So I just kind of started off by going around Rouen, capital city, to kind of pick up all the quests there, and then try and kind of satellite out as the needs arose. Luckily, one of the first places I went was the mayor's office, where we learned about this missing like candelabrum orbal decorations. We actually saw it before, and I looked at it, and it got stolen. And it was stolen by somebody who left a calling card, and ironically, the calling card's signature name was Phantom Thief B. Now, why? I don't know. I even made a comment at the time saying like it's odd how often the term Phantom Thief comes up as a gentleman-like puzzling thief in so many JRPGs. It's almost tradition at this point, so it wasn't really all that surprising. So we go running around with Chloe and everybody else, just kind of looking for these clues, and that was actually pretty fun. It was one of the reasons why the episode was so long, but at the same time, I really kind of enjoyed trying to like bumble my way through the clues. We stopped at various places like the lighthouse, which is this three-eyed giant that overlooks the city. I kind of pieced that together, though it was odd because you'd have to look really hard to notice that the lighthouse had three kind of lenses at the top. You had to look at it at a very certain angle. So I was just kind of going around looking for what the tallest structure was in Rouen. I was like, I'm pretty sure I saw something when the tour was going by, and it was the plaque memorial on the beach with the lighthouse. And then it sent us to a like one-eyed it said to an endless track of red and black, and I had a lot of fun with that one, because after about like a few minutes of just kind of thinking, I suddenly hit me. I was like, wait a second, that sounds like a roulette board, and I was absolutely right. I was very proud of myself for that one. Because if we just go in, boom, there it is, takes a real board. And then it goes to the one that gave me the most trouble, which was a one-eyed overseer at the land harbor. And so I thought, okay, land harbor, for me, that's like two things. Either it's the natural harbor, like a beach part of this harbor or something close to the water, as opposed to like an artificial harbor, or my second thought was, maybe it's a hotel, because harbors are where ships go to rest, recuperate, and kind of resupply. And I was like, well, that's where people go when they're traveling across the land. So maybe a land harbor is a hotel. After I looked in those kinds of places, mostly wandering around, I kind of was getting a little stressed and frustrated about it all, until I just happened to walk into the what's it called? I don't want to call it an airport, because it's not. It's like the landing port for airships. And at that point, I had a bit of a problem with that, because I still think to this day that a land harbor doesn't really make sense. A sky harbor would have been a better description, but it also would have been too easy. So maybe that's why it was supposed to be a bit like mysterious and something to keep us kind of running around, because you can say the logic's there, but it just I thought it was not very intuitive. And the other thing was that finding that single eye, it turned out to be the little like trolley that moves like luggage around. It's the only thing that has like a lamp on it. And like you could say that like it has a lens similar to the lighthouse, which should have been the connecting clue, which is true. But the position of this thing is such that if you don't have your angle quite right, it's so easy to miss. In fact, the only reason I really noticed it was because I saw like the exclamation mark of interactable pop up and happen. I just out of reflex, I clicked the interact button just to see, and there it was. So that one I was a little annoyed with, but at the end we go to the final clue, which is supposed to be a barrel next to a crane, which is like funny because it's like all these were like all flowery and poetic, and then this latest one's just like, it's on the barrel by a crane. And it's like, okay, that's a little too easy. But of course, we get there, the barrel's gone. So we have to go get escorted to a warehouse that we can't go in, but have the guy who volunteers to take the barrel out, since we did him a favor getting him the warehouse key to begin with. The kind of coordinator happened to be inside there, but he didn't seem too nonplussed about why we were there. We found the clue, and then the manager comes back, except he doesn't. He's the first time he's seeing us at the warehouse, and he gets a little upset because we're looking in the warehouse that we're not supposed to be at. So it turns out the first guy was a doppelganger, someone who was dressed up and behaving like the manager of the warehouse site, who kind of apparently was using that disguise to quickly get into the warehouse and put the clue, or at least make sure the clue was findable for us before we got too far ahead of his machinations or whatever, or hers, I guess. Regardless, that was the end. We just found it in that barrel and we got returned, and we were told don't pursue this any further. It all seemed really weird. Like, it seemed odd that the mayor would be so intent on us not continuing to investigate who the Phantom Thief B was, nor William, I believe is his name, who's his personal assistant, who was determined that we don't snoop around the mayor's house, but instead go and find everything else, because he was confident that he'd found everything there needed to be found on site. Both of them seeming really oddly dodgy about it all, and being pretty determined to have things play out a very specific way. Suspicious, but maybe it's just a red herring, because the whole thing was really odd. But it implied that we're going to see more machinations with this Phantom Thief in the future. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Now we get to the traveling stuff. After I reset, re-equipped, and recuperated, but by the way, I'll show off in the next episode, but I've got my orbs all set up completely differently. Got some new powerful stuff going on now that we've got Chloe, who can kind of take over for the water elements. It frees up more slots and allows Joshua and Estelle to specialize a bit more. And then Chloe, of course, specializes herself, and it's just pretty nice. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to being able to use it a lot more, because I didn't get too much combat this episode. The next big event was heading down towards the barrier, which is to the south, which leads to the next part. The next county or providence, I guess, is the proper word. But we go down there because there's some kind of traveler that's causing a mischief. Wouldn't you know, it's our old friend, super stupid Duke. And that got some spice. That session got insane, because not only was he causing chaos, and he was directly, because last time he just inconvenienced us, and it was annoying, but we dealt with it, right? he wasn't inconveniencing just us. He was inconveniencing a whole bunch of travelers. Some of them also uppity and snooty. And so, like, they were getting upset. They were yelling. They were clashing. Like, all the guards were pretty much on hand, just trying to keep things from getting out of control. And so, hilariously, Joshua gets tied up trying to calm, like, the upset travelers. And so Estelle and Chloe go to try and deal with the, like, rambunctious person who turns out to be the Duke. So Estelle takes point because she knows who he is, and Chloe's, like, not sure she can do anything. So Estelle tries to be nice, tries to be comforting, tries to be reasonable, and he's just completely just blowing her off, saying, "Oh, why should I condone, like, other people? Why should I, like, make things inconvenient?" We even, like, say, like, "Oh, there's a fancy dinner party going on with the mayor. You should probably attend that. There could be a lot of, like, respectful guests who are probably looking forward to seeing you." And he's just like, "No, I've had enough parties. I want to hang out here and ruin everyone else's day." And so, like, she does her best, but it seems like, if anything, she makes it worse, because she points out, like, "Well, come on, like, you need better food and lodgings than this place can provide you." And he's like, "Oh, that's a good point. Send a message to the hotel owner. Have him get a bunch of people to bring out fancy food, a chef, and a bunch of furniture, like a bed and chairs and everything. And he's essentially going to renovate this room, this whole place, for himself for a day," which is just, it's amazing they can make such an unlikable character. It's like, he's the Umbridge of this series. It's like, you've done really nothing heinous, but I like murderers and thieves more than you. And the thing is, Estelle's very similarly thinking. She agrees with my kind of point of view on this, except she's not as restrained. And she goes absolutely berserk and intends to beat his skull in. "You, soldier! What do you think you're doing? Hurry up and arrest this brat!" "The only one who needs arresting here is you big jack!" Oh my gosh, she brought her weapon out! Ah! "Estelle, don't!" "Hey-ya!" Oh my gosh. "Estelle, stop, please. This is gonna..." No, she didn't, like, holding her back. And Chloe has to literally, like, grab her, keep her away from him, and then the other guards, like the other soldiers, have to also like subdue her. And it's funny because she's like biting at the she's tearing at the bit, and she's just like, let me at him," and it's amazing. It was probably my favorite part of the whole episode, was just seeing how quickly things spiraled out of control. Thankfully, it gets relatively resolved. I'm not sure why, it just kind of did, and I'm not going to complain. But all things done, we head back. We turned in those quests, and then we start moving up, because the next two are a treasure map that we're supposed to go and help find for Jimmy. By the way, I thought the reference was pretty funny, because he's looking for a treasure map of an old pirate from the old days before the Orbment Revolution, who used to pirate the waterways outside Rouen because it was a big trade route. And I think it quickly dawned on me that this character's Jimmy, who's looking for a treasure of a famous pirate who went missing a long time ago, whose supposed treasure's never been found. And it immediately made me think of Treasure Island, which is, has the main character Jim, who is working as part of a crew that's trying to hunt down the lost treasure of a great pirate whose treasure went missing long ago and has been rumored to be around the area. So he's like, "Hey, that's where you found me, on the beach, trying to, like, stop me from being killed. Go there and look." Now, this quest, I said that I had a long time spending looking around, like, the town. No, this quest, this one broke me. I was searching for so long. You pretty much are told where you found him on the beach in that little, like, kind of like cubby. You start there. And then the map says it is southeast of there. And literally he even says, like, "Well, there's only so much beach between, like, there. Just go and start looking." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, that's great." So I learned a couple things. First thing, you can actually go out into the water. I didn't even try that for some reason before. And so there's, like, this stretch of just, like, shallow water you can run around it. There's nothing there, but you can run around in it. And then I recalled, and then kind of a different part of the map, how, like, you could go along a very narrow strip around the land to, like, get around places. And so I thought, well, maybe, because I looked all around this really big beach and just there was nothing. And so then I was like, all right, after painfully making sure and trying not to go crazy, I said, okay, well, what if by southeast it literally means through phases? Because that's normally not very common when a game gives you general directions that usually doesn't say, oh, you have to go through load gates in that like logical progression in order to find it. It's not very common because it can cause such confusion. So I didn't even really think about it until like I was getting desperate. And I was like, okay, fine, we're gonna go to the next one. And immediately I noticed that my whole a treasure chest I found on the beach that was like detached, but you had to go along a narrow strip. And I went back there thinking like, oh, well, maybe the treasure's like hidden there, like part of the hidden wall or something. No. I kept wandering around and around and around, and finally, my little tiny brain figured things out, and I realized, wait a minute. What if other parts of the beach can do the same thing that I saw here, where like it looks like the beach ends, but you can actually work your way around it? Wouldn't you know it? You go all the way down that part of the beach in that last segment of road before you go to Ruan, but you stay on the beach instead of going onto the highway, which is like right next to it, and you follow it down past to the point where the beach seems to end next to a cliff, and then follow the cliff around for a very long ways, you eventually find a barrel that has a treasure and some two-bladed like swords with skulls on them, which seemed okay. Like it seemed comparable to what I'd already had on Joshua. Like they were a little stronger, but they have like another stat that was lower. I'm gonna give them a try, see what I think. But I didn't feel like, oh, this is an amazing find. It was more of like, I'm just glad it's over. Oh, hang on. I don't think I ever went down here. Oh, yeah, here it is. I think, please be this the right one. Oh, this feels right. This feels really sneaky. Gosh, it's a long way down the beach. Oh my gosh. Oh, there's a thing. Skull daggers and torn map. Took the map back to Jimmy. He was like, cool, this leads to a different sea map that leads to a map. It's a map that leads to the map. And I was like, yeah, this really is just Treasure Island, but watered down and probably going to have a much more disappointing conclusion. But you know what? I got hope. I'm going to hope. He mentioned O'Neill, who turns out to own like kind of like a general store in the area. And by the way, I did pick up Liberl News 5 there and read it, unfortunately. Like I'll probably include that segment here just because you don't really need music for that. And like there's not much like there, so I'll slap that in here. Now, take a break from our random adventuring to enjoy a graphic audio novel reading of this news thing. I don't know. All right, issue 5. Feature story. We interviewed Colonel Richard. A close-up look at the man behind the plan. Lindell incident halted the nation's aerial transportation and struck fear into our hearts. But thanks to the Royal Army's Intelligence Division, hereafter ID, all of that's behind us now, as no hostages were harmed. We are pleased to welcome the ID founder today for an exclusive one-on-one interview. We'd like to thank him for taking time of his busy schedule to meet with us. Alan Richard, founder of ID, born SC 1168, age 34, single. War College graduate, rank Colonel, Liberal News, hereafter LN. Congratulations on your success with the Lindell incident, Colonel Alan Richard, hereafter AR. Thanks, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to congratulate. We officers just sit in front of a desk all day. It's the men and women in the field who deserve the praise here. And we are thankful, truly. Tell me, Colonel, what was your role in the 100 Days of War? Easier to say what my role wasn't. I planned strategies, fought, handled communications and intelligence. I procured goods for the troops, named just a few of my tasks. And were the lessons you learned in the war contributed to the founding of the ID? Actually, no. We now live in an information age, and as orbital technology advances, life becomes faster paced. If the Royal Army can't keep up, well, then that's it for us. How do you see the Royal Army now? In what ways do you believe it could be improved? As an officer, I really can't officially answer that. If you're asking for my own personal opinion, though, I'd have to say we need to become a more robust organization. As in more arms proliferation? No, quite the opposite. Not an expansion of force, but quality. We need significant improvements to our organization, our equipment, and our command structure. I'm afraid that's all the time we have, but Colonel Alan Richards, I sincerely thank you for granting us this wonderful opportunity. Reporter's impressions. Unpretentious, unrestrained, and bold, Colonel Alan Richards is nothing at all like the elite, haughty image people seem to have of him. And given his accomplishments, it's clear he's not only a brilliant man, but a politically savvy one as well. He truly is the Royal Army's rising star, and his time is only just beginning. Culture. Festival of the Genus Royal Academy. Lychee is back in season. As always, the Genus Royal Academy is ready to celebrate. Come for the fruit, but stay for the booths and exhibits, and of course, annual class play. Cultural sightseeing run Air Lytton. Clear lake waters flow at the edge of the aqueduct, forming cascading falls of unmatched beauty, such as Air Lytton, a place of natural splendor, boundless wonder. Scholars and archaeologists alike are baffled as to how such grand medieval aqueducts were built in the age before orbal technology. At present, the ruins of Airletten are used as a checkpoint between Rouen and Zeiss, but quality accommodations are also available for curious travelers with a taste for the ancient and mysterious. If that's you, then letting the air out of your boring life and get going. Ugh, gross. Breaking story. Mercia Orphanage burnt to ashes. Before dawn yesterday, a fire broke out at the Mercia Orphanage. No injuries were reported, but the building has been completely leveled. The Bracers Guild is presently investigating. And then finally, so that's O'Neill and his store, and apparently he's the one who's been talking to Jimmy about these stories. But when I tried to talk to him and see if there's more that could be talked about, there really wasn't anything triggering there. So I'm guessing that's going to be a quest train that can potentially lead us into the next area. So I'm going to try and remember to talk to O'Neill or O'Neill, whatever his name is, before I leave, after I wrap up whatever's going on with the festival, because it might be a hidden quest to continue to look for this treasure map, which, like I said, I'm quite confident it's just going to be a disappointment in the end, but kind of, it's the friends we make along the way kind of a story. After that, we finally have only 2 less quests that we did. I was not sure about the escort one because it just said that someone wanted to go on the Crone Trail, but I had no idea who it was, so I spent a lot of time running around Rouen just trying to make sure I wasn't going to pass this Amelia who had the contract. But I didn't find her, and it turned out there's a reason for it. But before I left, I also went to the Orb Center, picked up a maintenance kit for the lighthouse, our old friend at the lighthouse, and he just said, hey, just deliver this to him so he can repair the lighthouse, get it all set up and ready to go. Have a little talk about how the importance of it, and even drops a kind of a casual mention about how the lighthouse operator, he's a proud man, but he just wants to contribute and be useful. When he was forced to retire, he went up to the lighthouse. He used to be a drinker, but he had to set that aside because he can't afford to drink. And it kind of was vague, but my interpretation of that was that lighthouse operator needs to be cognizant and be aware of when they need to turn the lights on and to listen for ships and to try and help make sure that people are going to be safe and not going to be slammed onto the rocks. So he likely has an old drinking habit he can't fulfill anymore, but it probably causes him a lot of stress, and he lives out there all by himself. And so I was like, you know what, that makes sense for why he's so cranky, but I imagine he's still going to be a bit of an annoyance. Turned out no. We went there, and he was oddly pleasant to the point where I was almost suspicious, and then we went through, and he just seemed fine. He still was a little critical, but it was very much more of a dismissive critical rather than oh my gosh, you terrible children who don't know the future, don't know how to do, being a bracer is more than just blah, blah, blah. Last time he went on a rant. This time he just kind of casually mentioned Cassius probably, and then ignored us. So yeah, there was nothing else really there, just dropped it off. And then we finally went up to Minoria, kind of chatted with some of the people, saw the kids were outside playing, and it sounds like overall, the orphans are doing fairly well. The situation's okay. And hopefully we'll figure out what happened to the orphanage soon. But we then finally did run into Amelia, who was the one who contracted to help us escort her uncle up the Crone Pass Trail. Except he already went. He just up and left before we even showed up because she hired us, not him. And he just ignored her pleas to just wait for the bracers. So he goes up there by himself. It absolutely lets you walk away from that if you wanted to. But of course I'm not going to. So I go up the pass, running around, not nearly as scary because I have Chloe with me. I'm a couple levels higher, and I have haze that makes it so I don't get ambushed and just assaulted by every corner of creature. That doesn't stand not the same for an old man who turns out to be our old friend, the mushroom picker, the one who wanted the glowing mushroom that drew out monsters. He's out there again trying to find rare stuff to cook with, and he gets cornered by a whole bunch of exploding jellyfish thingies, whatever they are. So we go and beat the crap out of them real quick, and thankfully, it's not that terrible of a fight. But then he's kind of annoying because he's just judging. He's like, oh, why are you judging me? I'm a genius. You'll rue the day. And then we bring him back, and he's like, oh, you know what? Let's start over and be friends. Maybe I'll come and run into you again later. And so we're going to daisy chain our way through his adventures again. No idea what he's going to get up to next. But hey, it's still kind of fun to see how there are people kind of doing their own little journeys along parallel with us. It's obviously not coincidence, but it's presented in a way that makes it feel very coincidental, which is really nice. Which actually makes me kind of sad that I haven't seen the scientist guy who we've run into at the towers. Maybe I need to go back to that cursed tower again. Now I think about it. if that is a thing before I go to the festival, maybe drop a quick hint that I should check that out again. I might try it again after the festival, like when we're going to be making our way to the next area, just to make double sure. But like, if I could miss something by not going right now, give me a little, it's a tiny spoiler. Not really a spoiler, but a tiny spoiler, because I don't want to waste my time next episode with how much this episode already set me back. I want to make sure I do a nice dive into like the new content, especially because I guarantee you whatever's happening with this festival is going to be full of lots of like plot and character growth, and I'm not going to be cutting any of that out, so it's probably going to be a long episode where not much happens, but I get a lot of enjoyment. Regardless of that was pretty much the end. I just turned everything in. We made it to Bracer rank 4, I think, like Junior Bracer rank 4, which is really good. We're progressing. We started at like 9, and we're progressing our way up, so we're already at 4, which is really impressive, honestly. Last thing I guess I should say, whilst I was frantically running around trying to find that treasure, I did stumble upon a shiny palms. And I took your advice, and I immediately did the supercharged, like crazy, like strikes that can interrupt the flow, and took one of them out, and then ran around missing another one for like 3 rounds until it finally ran away. But I got one, and I was very happy with that. I was a little too happy. I was just thrilled. So yeah, that is the summary of everything that happened there, and kind of my interpretations and the highlights of it. Like I said, if I've done this right, I've sprinkled in a few clips from like the events that happened, maybe some of the highlights. Again, though, it just doesn't make sense to just play it all out without any of the audio, because like the work it would take is just beyond what I'm capable of doing in time and in effort. It's just not. If I hired an editor, maybe it would be something I could have cobbled together in a way that was halfway passable, but it just isn't really in the stars for me. I'm not nearly in a state where I can do that kind of thing. And I'm trying to teach myself to be a better editor, but it's all got to be self-taught, and it's mostly YouTube tutorials. And I've already been struggling as it is. With the new audio setup, I've followed several tutorials, and the logic of what they've said and what I've done all works out, but clearly I've got something wrong. So I'm going to just have to keep hoping. The problem is, honestly, it'd be so nice if I could just have like a 30-minute like coaching session from someone who does like live streaming, because like this is something that's like imperative to a live streamer who does content with other people. You can live stream by yourself without too much audio problems, but to make it so that you can have a Discord call that is recorded independently of your game audio, which is recorded independently of your voice audio, and that they're all adjustable live and processable after the fact, so that you can in post make a much better like agglomeration video edited form. That's a bit of a different thing, and it involves like artificial like audio splits and by forcibly redirecting audio chains, and then somehow still being able to listen to those audio chains whilst also isolating them. It's very, very interesting. And if you know anyone who happens to know this, I'll take any links I can get to potentially figure this out, because it'd be something I'd love to be able to start doing more collaborative stuff with people, and I want to be able to do it in a way that doesn't inhibit the quality of the content I make. I've been very frustrated in the past with my collaborations, because I feel like I don't get what I want from them. And especially if I'm going to start doing like what I hope will be potential content in the future with groups of people, I want to be able to have a setup that can actually, facilitate it in a way that doesn't make me want to cry inside. Because frankly, the way audio tends to go, if you try and smoosh it all into one track, it's just a nightmare. It's impossible to work with, except for unless you get everything just right at the beginning. And when you can't get live feedback, that's really, really difficult. Anyway, enough ranting and rating. Like, there really wasn't much else there, just like a little bit of like context stuff about the world building, talking to random NPCs, which was fine, but nothing really of note. Like maybe I missed something that like I should have shared, but like I didn't know was relevant. That could be a thing, but I'm sure that'll like, if that comes up, I'll be able to point it out. Regardless of that, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for dealing with this very odd halfway episode. I'm just glad I kind of figured things out before it got too bad. Like, cause like if this happened on what we're covering next week, I would cry. It would be so sad, because I'm so looking forward to this festival and whatever this play is going to end up doing. Cause I've got so many theories, and like, I just think it's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait. And I'm really, like, I'm now paranoid I'm going to mess it up somehow. So hoping they're not. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you especially to the patrons to make it possible for me to make content. It sucks that the quality of this week's episode took such a nosedive for me trying to increase the quality. But, that's the problem with self-taught. And, you never know when things are going to go sideways. And I'm just doing the best I can, but it's because of you that I'm motivated to do so and to try and make content so good as I can. You are a big motivation for that, especially in the viewers and the commenters, the people who leave likes, subs, all that, everything, anything you do, any clicks you offer, whatever they be, it means the world to me. So thank you. And I hope you enjoyed this. But until next video, watching me up, see me in next. I'll see you there.